It's man like Dan. Come on! Welcome to Melanated and Proud. Today, we have a clinical psychologist. She's not just focused about her own career, but she also dedicates her time to help aspiring psychologists from the black community. She's a kind-hearted, bubbly individual that is always willing to help. So let's welcome Dr. DrMelodySmith.
Yay! Thank you for that intro. So lovely. Thank you.
Can you let me know a bit about your cultural background?
So, my mum, both of my parents originate from Jamaica. My mum was born in the UK. My dad was born in Jamaica, but so my background is Jamaican. Both sets of grandparents were born in Jamaica. So, yeah, Jamaican and proud. But obviously, I was born in the UK. Yeah, I was born in the UK. In London, and I've always lived in London. My mum was a single parent, and so there was kind of, I guess that comes with a lot of preconceptions, I suppose. For me, my experience was we didn't have a lot of money growing up. But that said, my mum is a very ambitious lady, and she's not at all work shy. And so I was fortunate enough. I say fortunate because I think sometimes not having money can show you things, ways to be kind of more resourceful and more creative. I was fortunate to see my mum do that and work her way up to the point where she was able to buy her house and have quite a nice life. But yeah, so I come from a single parent family. I've watched my mum work really, really hard, and for me it wasn't a negative experience. It was actually a positive experience in that I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything. It was I had a great role model in my mum, and so for me it was positive, but in the sense that we only had one income coming in. It was a challenge, particularly towards the earlier years.
Clinical psychology, was that something you always wanted to pursue?
No, I think I always considered being a doctor. So I have the most amazing older sister. I have a wonderful younger brother as well, but I have the most amazing older sister because ever since I can remember, she has called me Dr. Melly. Like that's literally, she's always kind of, it's strange. She's always kind of promoted that for me. Yeah. And so I always had a sense that I would like to be a doctor. And in my mind, being a doctor meant being a medical doctor before a certain stage. Because let's face it, I didn't know what clinical psychology was when I was in primary school. I didn't even know it was in secondary school, really. So no, it's not something I always wanted to do, to pursue an education beyond undergraduate and master's level. That's something I have always had in mind, that it's possible for me. And I think that's a really important point, because a lot of people might not have that perspective that it's possible for them, but it always is. You just have to work it in. For me, from a young age, I felt like it was possible for me.
When exactly did you end up getting onto the doctorates?
So I started the doctorate in 2014, and I finished it in 2019.
Okay.
So if you do the maths, it took me slightly longer than it does your average trainee. And I have lots of theories as to why that is. I mean, and one of them is a more concrete thing. I had a baby in the middle of training, so I had a year out maternity leave. But that only brings us up to 4 years. So I had a kind of period of, it was a long slog, basically. It was a long slog, the training for me. It was very challenging training on a personal level, on an intellectual level, on a personal level, on a skills level, on an experience.
And you want to go into that a bit more?
Yeah, of course. So
in terms of the challenges,
some of the challenges, it's the training is challenging for everyone. I think that needs to be the baseline of what I say. Everybody is challenged by it, and for different reasons. But I think for me, there was an extra layer because of my experience, and there was an extra layer because of my ethnicity or my cultural background. I personally went into training not having enough, for me, contact and supervision, and so I kind of went in with this kind of rose-tinted glasses, and I think that's an issue. I think that made it very difficult for me to transition into the training. So that's the first thing. And I think added to that was the fact that I'm a Black woman. So one of the key things for me is that I trained in Surrey. There just isn't a lot of representation on course. I was really fortunate in that I trained with probably about 5 other people from ethnic minority backgrounds, minoritized backgrounds. But in terms of lecturers, supervisors, qualified clinical psychologists, no one really looked like me. I think we had one amazing lecturer who was Black, who's a Black woman, and we all of us Black girls, because we're all Black women on the training, we were like, oh my gosh, yes. So happy, and it really shows how important that representation is for us as Black people. And I didn't get that so much, and that's just representation. But when we think about qualitatively what that means, so if you have a Black clinical psychologist who's supporting you, they understand things that you don't necessarily need to say. It's that kind of, it's just that kind of experience of working with different types of people, different communities, and and when me as a Black psychologist, I have to explain to you, my supervisor, why I'm finding things hard as a Black person, you're placing an extra pressure on me, because now I have to not only put my feelings to the side, I have to talk about my feelings in a way that's like I'm detached from them, so that you, the person who's supposed to be helping me, can understand. And then you want me to bring those feelings back into the room so we can unpick them when I know that you've just learned about this. Like, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Not having that opportunity to reflect on things with a supervisor that had that real kind of raw understanding of what it is to be a Black trainee psychologist, or even a supervisor that is able to bring in that thinking to supervision and ask those questions without the onus being on me. It meant that a lot of things in supervision probably were missed, and I wasn't able to work through them until a bit later down the line, and basically after I had a massive burnout, I failed a placement and had a really, really tough time during second year. Now, I'm not saying I didn't recover from it, but it would have been so much better to not have had an anxiety attack or an anxious period of my life and burnout. It would have been so much better. I don't know, to not have had that. We flip it on its head. I've experienced anxiety before. Never gonna know what that feels like. Good to have some sort of lived experience of mental health difficulty in that I work with people with mental health difficulty. But it was really hard. And I think. And
then after that, you had a baby, or was it before?
No.
Because I just want people to get an understanding of like how much you went through, yet you were still able to complete your course, really.
I think after I had that burnout, that anxious period, it took a long time for me to come out of that. I say a long time. It felt like forever, but it was a few months. But that's long enough for me. And it helped me, in the end, it helped me to put things into perspective. So where I was talking about before, that those rose-tinted glasses about what clinical psychologists do or who they are, I no longer had that, because I now know how harmful clinical psychologists can be if they're not being reflective, and if they're not putting the person that they're talking to at the center. I know that now. And so being able to process that, it helped me to put things into perspective. The course is no longer the be-all and end-all. My mental health and my family is. That was what got me through it. And so I realized I'm putting my life on hold. And do I really need to do that? I don't have to. I can make that decision for myself, like everybody else can. And the training it was my job. It is my clinical psychology. I love it, but it's my job. It's not my life. And at that point in my life, that was what I wanted. I wanted to have something outside of the training and not be consumed by this training and it be the only thing I'm focusing on. I wanted to build my family.
Yeah. And
so I did.
And so did you ever feel like giving up?
Oh my goodness. I was so close. This close. So close. I remember, this is a story I haven't told anybody really. So I remember I was on that call, I was on that placement, and I was on the phone to my sister, my wonderful sister, and I was walking around a park, just talking to her on the phone. And that's so symbolic because in my mind I was going round and round in circles, and I thought to myself, what's the point? Like, why do I even need to do this? Like, why am I this is making me sick. Why? I don't need to do this. Like, I don't have to. And then, my sister said to me, well, that's fine. No matter what you do, we're proud of you. We love you. Do what you need to do. That's
very nice.
Think is not, don't worry about us. Don't worry about anybody. But what are you going to do? If you leave, what are you going to do? And is it like, I can't remember how she asked it, but she was like, are you going to leave this with regrets? And I couldn't get past that. I couldn't get past it because this is what I wanted to do for a long time. It wasn't what I always wanted to do, but from college, which is 18, it's what I wanted to do. And if I wasn't going to do this, what was I going to do? Go back to research? I could do that, but I just didn't feel like that was fulfilling enough. That's why I wanted to pursue this career. And so, having someone give me that kind of ultimatum, that way of thinking was really helpful. And even though I did really want to give up, I'm not going to lie, I did. I really, really did. The idea of giving up was not attractive because of the consequences of that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing, because obviously I know you said you haven't shared that before, but it's nice to know that you're human and you feel like giving up, and so it just goes to show that you also need to be around the right people that also encourage you, because I can ask you again, like, if it wasn't for your sister, do you think you'd have ended up giving up? I know it's hard to say, but
Ooh.
All the people around you.
Question. The people around me, if it wasn't for the people around me, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. In fact, if it wasn't for the people around me, I don't know if I would have been able to continue, because as there comes a point, in clinical psychology, we promote that people who have lived experience are welcome. That's absolutely fine. But what is not fine is if you're going through a mental health crisis and it's affecting your work. And that was what was happening for me. Like, essentially, I failed that placement because I wasn't able to develop in that environment. So as much as I was sad that I failed the placement, I didn't necessarily disagree, because I hadn't made the progress that I had hoped to make in that placement. And I believe in the process. If you haven't made those strides yet, you're not ready to move on. You're not ready to be on your, we have to, as clinical psychologists, be responsible. And I agreed with, I hadn't made that progress yet. Why I didn't make that progress is another kind of thing to go into, and so because I hadn't made that progress, clearly, things weren't happening for me. And so I may have got to the point where I wasn't able to continue training, because if I wasn't able to unpick those mental health difficulties that I was having, then how can I operate in a safe way through the training? You're compounding your experience on top of each other. So I needed to get through that so I can start to get those experiences again and start to learn, you know? And so, that decision might have been taken out of my hands, whether or not I wanted to. That's the reality.
How many times did you apply for the doctorates, by the way?
The doctorate, I applied for it 3 times. 3.
Okay, right. So that's nice to give me some insight as well, because for those that don't know, it's so hard to get onto this course, and many people apply several times and they still don't get on. And so you've applied 3 times, and then on top of this, you finally got on, and you're faced with these obstacles. And so it's very mind-blowing to see that you face all of this, because I know you're speaking about it all casually, but I'm sure during the time it was very hectic and insane. And so the fact that you've come through that just shows how strong you are. And so I'm sure you've taken so many things from that time, because during those sort of struggles, you just learn so much about yourself as well. And so I guess you got to go through some stress to become stronger as well, like the same as like weightlifting as well. Some pain. I
don't know that much about weightlifting.
How do I? But I'm sure that definitely has shaped you. And so thanks for sharing that, because I know you've probably started reflecting a bit, and I don't know if you felt a bit of the emotions again, but
well, I think because I'm working in this space now, I've had to have moments to myself to reflect. And this is the wonderful thing about clinical psychology. I think the number one skill that I've come out with is a skill of reflection, and not just reflecting after something's happened, but knowing that in order to get through something, I need to reflect on it so I know what to expect, and then you can go for a reflective period afterwards as well, and doing that whole thing. So I've had moments where I've thought to myself, well, if I'm supporting aspiring psychologists, to go on to training, I'm going to feel like I'm applying for training too. What did that feel like for me, and how is it going to be different for me now as a qualified psychologist? How can I protect my feelings when I know I can get really invested in aspiring psychologists in a different way to how I would get invested in people that I see for my clinical work. So in short, I'm saying, I continue to reflect on how these conversations affect me, but also promoting that everybody, whether you're an aspiring psychologist or not, takes the time out to reflect, because it can really help to process and learn and protect.
Yeah, and it's not just you reflecting; you're also providing solutions as well. So that's what is very important, because yes, you can just think about things, but it's not dwelling. You're actually trying to find ways to improve yourself,
that's
better yourself. So that's very good. So after the doctorates, how was life after that?
Since training, I am so much happier. I'm in a much better place in terms of my learning, and that's because of all the things I was talking about before, in terms of going into training, not having as much supervision or as much experience as maybe I could have had, and being a black trainee and not really knowing what that means or how to unpick that in supervision. That's what made it difficult for me. It's not that I'm blaming training, it's the combination of me and training. And being outside of training meant that I wasn't being constantly assessed under those conditions, where I'm trying to understand what it is to be a black trainee. I'm trying to understand what it is to be a clinical psychologist. So when I left training, it's been great. So I now work with children with learning disabilities and their parents, and I work largely on their kind of positive behavioural support framework in terms of the way that I think about the work that I do, but I also do adapted CBT and other bits of work as well, like assessments, cognitive assessments and neuropsych assessments, and I get to dip into other bits of work as well if there is a call to work collaboratively with another team within the CAMS team that I work in, CAMS service that I work in. CAMS is Child and Adolescent Mental Health Service.
About that support, let's talk about what you're doing now on the side as well. So helping out aspiring psychologists. What made you do that? It might be clear now since you went through all of that in the doctorates. But yeah, what made you start this journey?
I just feel like it's so unfair that people can't access any consistent feedback from a clinical psychologist unless they're in those roles. And if there's any way that I can try to just provide something, anything that is credible and that is easily accessible, I want to do that. There's a lot out there, it's all dispersed.
Yeah,
so I can unify it in one place and people know that it's credible because it's coming from a clinical psychologist, and I'm vetting things and asking other clinical psychologists for their input. Then they can be more confident that they're getting what they need.
From my perspective, just looking at what you're doing, you can just really see how authentic it is, because you can see a few people on YouTube as well, whether they're just on it to get views and whatnot, but you can tell that there's a deeper passion within you. I don't know your story now, but you can just tell through what you're doing, and you're just involved all the time with many different things. And so it's good that you've literally made yourself available, because you're actually a pioneer in the game. You're an innovator. You're trying to just make things different, and so you're not just reflecting on the issues, you're actually doing something about it, because you can just talk about it, but you're actually putting yourself out there, getting into TikTok as well, everything. So
trying.
Would you like to share your YouTube channel and your TikTok?
Yeah, so my YouTube channel is DrMelodySmith. Just I don't know how else to link it, because you say I run out of views, I don't even know. Technology to me is it's way over my head. I'm learning so much. But yeah, DrMelodySmith is my YouTube channel. If you type that in, I'm sure it will come up. And I'm on Instagram more now than TikTok, because I can't do too many technical things. And Instagram it's really interactive. I really like how interactive it is. And so my handle on Instagram is DrMelodySmith, but you spell out the full doctor, because DR was taken. So
no. Okay, I've got a question for you. So how do you think us black people in the UK can move forward?
Oh, that's a big question. I think we are moving forwards, I think we, first and foremost, let's just hats off to us, we are making strides. I feel like there's a lot more in terms of anti-racism that's happening, and people just being more bold, but also articulate in the way that they put across their anti-racism message, and what's the word, invite people who aren't black people to be allies, or to just walk with us. So I think that's really great that people are doing that. I think such a difficult question to answer.
In terms of together, I guess, is more of the focus. So yes, there are injustices and we see people come together anti-racism, but I mean as a community and working together.
As a community and working together, I think really promoting education. I'm going to say that education is key, and if there's any ways that we can be pooling resources, because that's what people from other cultures and communities do, pool resources so that we can have more at our disposal. So things like I've heard of Saturday schools that are specifically for children from black backgrounds, or Caribbean or African backgrounds specifically. The books that are there, the teachers that are there are representative, and I think it puts across a good message to the children that it's just normal, this is run by black people, but it's just a normal thing. And so much as we can, sort of normalizing, pooling our resources, but also normalizing people from black people being in all different areas of the community and life and any job, that kind of thing. But yeah, I think it's such a difficult question to hear asking.
No, yeah, of course, it's not. There's no clear answer. It's more of a thing where it's a question that can help generate ideas, and so eventually making solutions. Because I don't also want it to be a thing where we're just thinking about things and not doing it. So like yourself, you've already been doing stuff, and there's more that we can do. So hopefully in regards to like what you're saying about Saturday schools, that could be nice if that occurs again. Because I know like years ago that is what people were doing, but obviously they got closed down and stuff. Pan-African
yeah, I mean, still, yeah, I think it would be a really good thing to start up. I think for me, like, I don't know if it's because I am a mother of two, that I focus a lot on the children, and maybe I work because I work in CAMS as well, but I think that there is a real power in educating our children. Off the back of that is a power in educating parents. So one of the things that I mean, I'm very much focused on aspiring psychologists now in terms of like outside of my clinical work, but when I am in my clinical role, a lot of the work that I do is parenting and parenting skills. And so at some point, I think it's really important to be able to frame that for Black parents, so that Black parents are almost, I think, okay, let's just go back a little bit. I think back in the day, we had a government that kind of quite rightfully told us that, you know, things like hitting children and chastising children is not helpful for them. In fact, it breeds more behaviour that we don't want to see, essentially. And while that's a good thing, what that left a lot of parents, especially Black parents, is with fewer options to discipline children, or not knowing how to discipline children, and feeling like that decision has been taken out of their hands, so feeling disempowered, essentially. What the government, I think, or what we didn't do is upskill parents who were using hitting or chastising their children as a strategy to manage behaviour. We didn't empower them with alternative strategies. So fast forward a few years, what we now might have is a generation of children whose parents were less sure about how to discipline them, to varying degrees. Some parents might have still just hit them on that kind of thing, and some parents might have just let their children do things that they didn't know how to manage because they just didn't know how to manage it, and everything in between. And I think what we could do with now is some input from people like myself who have studied and continue to gain experience in children's behaviour and how we manage children's behaviour, and impart that onto parents, Black parents, but also so that they have that westernized kind of opinion or perspective of how to raise children, which I think can be really helpful if we're thinking of kind of like more of a positive behaviour support, or like a behavioural, not a hard and fast behavioural kind of approach, but because I think that's a bit maybe too cut and dry for children. Sort of like a positive behavioural support kind of approach. So having that kind of understanding of how to raise children, but also having a slant on it that brings in what it is to be a Black parent and Black children go through, and maybe a bit of history as well, and that kind of thing. So I think for me, if I think that's where I would come in. If we can have parenting that has a Afrocentric spin on it for Black parents, I think that will go a long way. Yeah,
that's a very good suggestion, actually. You made some very good points. For all I know, you might do that soon as well. So,
One at a time. I don't have no time.
One at a time. Final words of encouragement for your people.
I mean, I think just keep going. Just keep going. Life is such a journey. I'm on my journey, you're on your journey, everybody's on their journey. Everybody's journey looks different, and that's absolutely wonderful. So I think just keep going. I think, try to reflect in the meantime. Reflection helps the idea of it is that it will help you to map out what you need to do next, help you to connect with your values, with what you feel is right for you. You connect with your gut and your intuition. So important that we will connect with our gut and our intuition. It will guide us, and trust your intuition, and trust the source as well. Trust that you can do it. if you really want to, why not? Ask yourself why not, and just put one foot in the front of the other, and at every opportunity you get, reflect and plan and go at it again. That's my thing, I think.
Well, thanks for sharing that. But yeah, it's been a pleasure having you on. You're an inspiration, full of dedication, full information, dedication. I need to stop. I ain't going vacation, I'm joking. But yeah, but honestly, it's been a pleasure having you on. Like, you're very inspiring. I'm so happy that you've turned your struggles into good. You've overcome them, and I feel like a lot of us can learn from the things that you've gone through. Thanks for like opening yourself out to everyone else, because it's very unselfish. Like, you can generally just like move on about your life and just focus on yourself, but you've actually thought about helping the others, well, I guess the younger generation as well, and just continuously thinking about others, in it. So I guess that's just a very unique trait of yours. So yeah, I honestly wish you more success in every area of your life and happiness, and yeah, I'm sure more's to come from you. I know you're just getting started, and yes, I am. I'm pushing forwards with things, and so watch this space. Do follow me on Instagram, because at the moment that's where I'm kind of updating people. But the website's on its way, and more content is on its way. So just watch this space. Yeah. So please subscribe to her channel and follow her on Instagram, and support in every shape or form that you can. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Dan. You've been great.
It's all right. Don't say that.
You have.